Cool, all good. Can you hear me? No? Yeah, you can hear me? All right, good. Hi, welcome. You've made it to the end of day one, VMware Explore 2024. Old habits die hard. All right, I'm Justin Sider. I am the Chief PowerShell Officer, Chief Information Officer at Belay Technologies. Today we're doing PowerCLI 201. So hopefully, can I get a show of hands, people that are familiar with PowerCLI? That's good. So I did a PowerCLI 100 at a UserCon, and everybody knew the content, so it was kind of boring. So hopefully you'll be able to pick up a few different things for me today. We'll see how it goes. I will have some time. I think I only have 35, maybe 40 minutes of content. So they have me here for about an hour. So we'll be able to do questions if you have anything at the end. We'll see how it goes. All right. Yep, that's about me. JP Sider anywhere, Twitter, LinkedIn, you can find me. I'm a V expert, VMUG leader down in San Antonio, a VMware code coach, and I'm on the board of directors for VMUG as a whole. So been around the community for a long time, lots of experience with VMware as a whole. It's a lot of fun. So your takeaways today, we're gonna have a review of the basics. So I know everybody looks like they've done some PowerCLI. We're just gonna touch a little bit on it. We're gonna understand the developer center. So that's gonna bridge the gap from doing things in the UI to writing scripts, and then convert UI actions. We're gonna convert those actions to actual PowerCLI code, understand what you're getting out of the UI. All of the slides and code are right there. You'll see that on a few more slides if you missed it the first time. And the 200 level and 300 level content is the same URL. So come see us Wednesday. All right, full agenda. We're gonna go through the basics. We're gonna tell you what a script is. We're gonna go through a little bit of the developer center. I don't have a live interface to go to a vCenter, so I have screenshots. You'll be able to see a better picture of those screenshots from the files that are on the link that I had. We'll talk about PowerShell versus C# versus .NET, get you a better understanding of what those things are. You'll hear a lot of it as we talk about the UI actions and what they're retrieving for you. And then we'll just go through a quick example. We'll talk about some really helpful PowerShell commands if you're not familiar with them, review what related links are, and then I'll give you some resources for you to explore on your own. All right, PowerShell 101. This is, I do an hour on this normally. It's a little much, I think, but PowerShell's verb nouns, right? So get VM, that's your verb, that's your noun. We have some examples there, get process, write output. So you're gonna see me doing a lot of PowerCLI stuff and just a lot of general PowerShell stuff. So it's really simple, write output, right? It's gonna do exactly what you say. That's why I love PowerShell. It's super easy to understand. It's human readable. Good luck with that with Python or any other coding language that's out there. Even Batch is freaking terrible to script in. So I love PowerShell, and there's a lot of stuff out there for you. One thing, if you're writing your own functions, and we'll get into this in the 300 level class or 300 level session, you can see what verbs are allowed. So PowerShell has some rules in place. So run get verb, it'll output a whole list of different things that you're allowed to use. Otherwise, you're gonna get into trouble and people are gonna look at you funny. So pay attention to what that is. All right, what the function? How do you use a function? It's pretty simple. You just type the function name, and then based on how the person wrote that function for you, you can pass in parameters. There's a lot to learn about parameters. I suggest you just Google it and go to Microsoft's webpage. You'll learn a lot about how parameters work, positional parameters, accepting parameters, checking parameters, parameter sets. There's all kinds of things you can learn on parameters. We do not have enough time in the world to talk about parameters. So you'll see an example down here. I just want to step back a second. So I'm going to run through some slides, and then I'm just going to jump into PowerShell. So I'm going to try and get through the slides as fast as I can. So don't think I'm just trying to get to the end here. So it's pretty simple. Function name, we do the parameter name, there's a space in there, and then the parameter value. So as you see, I have a function called update console title. I give it the parameter name, and then I give it a nice area in quotes, or a nice string in the quotes, and it updates everything. It's fantastic. All right. Objects. We'll hear this a lot. So PowerShell is an object-oriented scripting language. I say scripting language because people don't like to say that it's a code or a programming language. I don't really like those people. So I'm fine with saying it's a programming language. It's object-oriented. An object is just a collection of data that represents an item, right? So when we talk about PowerShell, there's three different things. We have an object type. What are you? We have a method. What can you do to that object? What is available to do with that object? And then properties, which are things that describe that object. I probably don't have anything appropriate to say, so we're just going to go to the next slide. That could get me in a lot of trouble with HR. PowerCLI, we'll get started with this. So obviously we can do install the module. You're going to wait for a while. So install module VMware.PowerCLI. I missed the parameter there. So that's one of those things where if you can skip the parameter, some things have positional parameters for which you can install. So, and then we can connect to a vCenter. We'll do all of this. And then you can find out what your default VI server is. I'm a fan of not connecting to more than one vCenter at a time. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I have coworkers that like to do it. It's a terrible experience. We support about 60 different vCenters, so one at a time works perfectly fine for me. All right, a script, it's just a plain text file that has PowerShell commands in it. So when there's nothing that's fancy about it. You can write it in whatever editor you would like. How many people use Notepad? Oh my God. All right, Notepad++. All right. The PowerShell ISE. You kind of like, we were like, maybe I don't know if I want to. VS Code. Yes. All right, look. For the people that did not raise their hand for VS Code, install it. Get the PowerShell plugin. There's additional plugins too that'll help you with your curly braces. All kinds of different things that will help you. You'll see it when we start going through the demo. But for the love of God, dude, the guy that raised your hand for Notepad, like, come on, Notepad++ at least. Let's upgrade. It's free. Everything's free. All right. Things that we're not going to talk about today. There's all kinds of things with PowerShell. So execution policy, comment-based help. I'm going to show you what the help looks like. I'm not going to show you how to write it. Running scripts against remote computers. That's something that you can do. Exit codes are important if you're looking to process something after the script runs. Dot sourcing and what that means. There's a ton of things about PowerShell that you can learn. Not all we're going to learn today, but we'll get there. And then scripts are also important. I didn't say this, but you can pass in parameters. So that's something important to know when we can remotely call a script and pass in something for that script to work off of. All right, Developer Center. So this is kind of the basis of the presentation here, right? We want to go into the Developer Center, and then you can, we'll get to that in a second. All right, it's a great tool. You're a developer. Let's go. These pictures are probably not the great. So we'll touch on the API Explorer first. So VMware has a lot of really good documentation, actually, over the past couple of years that outlines their REST APIs. This is a Swagger implementation that's part of every single vCenter that you have, probably from maybe a late version of 6.5. I forget exactly what it is, all the way through 8 now. So if you can go to the Developer Center, you can go into the section that is the REST API Explorer, and you can actually execute and browse all of the REST APIs that are available. They have APIs for all of these things that are listed here. This is the end of me talking about REST, pretty much for the rest of the presentation. But it's a really good tool. And when we talk about PowerCLI, the newer commandlets that they're putting out in the version, I think it started with maybe 12, they started implementing these invoke something, whatever the command is. They are actually targeted towards the REST APIs, not the SOAP interface. So fun fact there. Also in the Developer Center, so this is code capture. So we can go to code capture, you can enable it, and then you press the record button, which I don't really have a good picture of. And then you can go through the UI and select your actions, right? You can power on a VM, you can power off a VM, you can add a VMDK, you can do anything in the UI that you would like to do, and it's going to record those actions and then you hit the stop record button and it spits all this stuff out. So a couple things. If it's not a public API, it will not show up here. So that's one thing they don't really tell you, and they don't tell you that it's missing. So if you're going through a long string of things that you're doing in the UI, and then you copy this and you put it in PowerShell, and it's like, it did all these things except for this one thing, it's probably a private API. So this isn't particularly great. This was, I think all I did was shut down a VM, right? So all of this just for shutting down a VM, because it's capturing, maybe I refreshed the page, maybe I had to click on inventory, I had to find the VM, so it gets kind of messy. So like your job is going to be to kind of decipher what all of this stuff is, and then turn it into something that's usable. All right, as I lied, I am going to talk about SOAP. So SOAP versus REST. All right, RESTful API, HTTP implementation, that is where VMware is moving all of their APIs to. And I say that because that's been promised since like an early version of 6. They were like, hey, we're not going to use SOAP anymore. We're going to convert everything over. Well, I think I've tested on vSphere 8 and I still can't clone a machine through the REST API. So we're kind of stuck with both of these for a while. The majority of PowerShell before version 13, PowerCLI before 13 was based primarily on the SOAP interface. So when you see that code output from the UI action recording tool, know that the PowerCLI team has done a lot of work to make the PowerCLI commands very easy for you. So if you see Common, if you see any of the Alan Renouf, any of those PowerCLI guys that have been around for a long time, thank them for making your life easy. And I'm going to show you what I mean on the next couple slides. So REST versus SOAP, 2 different APIs that the vCenter has available to you. All right. When you run the tool to record your actions and it spits something out, it's spitting it out to you in C#. You can run that in PowerShell natively, but it's not PowerShell. And on the next one. So, and then you probably are wondering like what these things are. So you're going to hear a lot about .NET when you're talking about PowerShell. You're going to hear a lot about C#, and then PowerShell itself. So .NET is the framework of libraries that everything's running on, right? You install that in your box. You can't install PowerShell unless you install the .NET libraries. That's just the crux of it. The C programming language, it's compiled. So if you feel like it, you can go write C#. It can do all of the things that you want it to do. You write commandlets because commandlets are compiled, or you write PowerShell that's not compiled. But this is the interaction, the relationship between them. We'll talk more about that in 301. I have a session on Wednesday and Thursday. It's they're repeat sessions. All right. So here's what we came here for today. We're going to convert Developer Center output to usable PowerCLI code. So the expectation is I'm going to go and power a VM off. It should be this simple. This is what I'm expecting, right? This is something that you would write in PowerShell, right? Well, guess what? This is what you get, right? I mean, that's not like very frustrating, isn't it? So, but we're going to show you how to get this information. All right. So get view. Get view is probably one of the most useful things you can use in PowerCLI. You can get an object, and then you can pipe that to get view. If you don't know what piping is, we can have a conversation about that afterwards. But we're going to get view. We're going to get the VM, which gives us information. We're going to pipe all that into get view, and it returns this nice list of things. And you can see here that VM51 matches the. It does not match my picture. So I actually used a real vCenter for this. My demo environment is just a vCenter simulator. So, whoops. But this is where you get the information from. So the MoRef, manage object reference, learn to love it if you're writing a lot of PowerCLI and you're getting information from the UI. All right. Good stuff. Anybody ever hear of the mob? We're in Vegas. It's not what you think it is. Managed object browser is one of the coolest things, right? So we talked about the REST API and how you can explore all of those APIs. You can do the same thing in the mob. So it's literally just your vCenter/mob. You log in with your provided credentials. I want to say administrator because, you know, and then you can dive down. Look, it is not intuitive. It's terrible. But you get to see a lot of different things that are in there, and you can browse and pick through things. It'll give you, if you're going into the right place, and again, I don't have the vCenter to explore and show you, you can see the different methods that are available through the API to reboot stuff, turn stuff off, whatever you need to do. So VM9480 was my dev box. I kind of blanked the rest of the crap out. So you can see the get view gets me the actual information. Yeah.
Like, I know you can find like guides for specific things. Is there a like all-inclusive guide like there is for PowerCLI on how to
So the question is there an all-inclusive guide on how to navigate the managed object browser? No. Nope. But you do get that. That did not fly as good as I thought it would. Not to my knowledge. I would love to say that there was one, but a lot of people don't even know that it exists. And in theory, because we're moving to REST, it should be going away. Yeah. All right. So, what methods are available on a thing, right? On an object. So here we have a long string command. I tried to make it big enough. Unfortunately, I had to go on to the next line. So get member is probably one of the best tools you can use as well. So I talked about get view is a PowerCLI command. Get member is a very important tool for just PowerShell in general. You can use this against any PowerShell object, not necessarily PowerCLI. So get member, you're going to want to do input object. And this can be either like a variable or it can be a command. You can feed in whatever you want. So here we're just saying get the VM. And then I specifically want to know the methods, right? So if I didn't do the methods, you'll see this in the live stuff later. It gives you a list of all the properties, the methods, and everything else. So here I just wanted to see, I was like, hey, I want to see what methods against that VM, right? I would expect shutdown guest to be there, right? Should be simple enough. The problem is it's the type is a universal virtual machine implementation, not a virtual machine, right? So these are the things that you could do against that object type. It's not really useful. So we go back to get view for the win. If you add get view, if you pipe it to get view and you run the same command, and then we filter on things that start with S or that have S in it. I wrote that backwards. That's funny. I didn't do it there. Now we can see all the actual useful methods that we can do against a virtual machine. So here you can see it's actual virtual machine object. So you can filter this. It's a huge long list. We'll see if we can get it to show on the screen nicely in a little bit. All right, how are we doing on time? Sweet. All right, the other one, get help. If you're getting a PowerShell function from somebody, not something that you wrote, know that get help is probably one of the most useful features you can have. So I've given you 3 of the most useful features, and I've said they're all number 1. So remember that. Get view, PowerCLI, get member, PowerShell, get help, PowerShell. As a person who writes PowerShell modules and hands them out to the world and my own team, giving them help is one of the most useful things you can do. It'll give you a ton of information about the command itself. It'll give you all the information about parameter sets, what's required, what's not required. And then related links. So this will tell you, so the one nice thing that PowerCLI folks have done, have given you related links. So this is probably not going to work right now. Maybe on an updated version it will. But it also gives you things that the other related commands you can use to mess with the VM itself. So if you're like, if you know that you can power on a VM or you can restart the guest OS or mess with VMware tools, this will usually tell you something similar if you're like, I don't know what the name of that commandlet is or that command, that function. All right, getting to the good stuff. This is my demo environment. I have my little Dell laptop here. Inside the laptop, I have Docker Desktop running, and I'm going to run a Docker container that's a vCenter simulator. So it's simulating the SOAP portion of the vCenter. It's not fully featured, but it's enough just to kind of get started and do some pretty good demos. It's also good if you want to write some PowerShell code and just test locally without screwing anything up in your actual live environment. And then obviously we have a PowerShell window there, so that's good. I probably won't come back to this one. So resources, again, we have all the stuff that I'm going to go through, and then developer documentation. So that'll be all the commandlets that PowerCLI pushes out, as well as the VMware forums. So if you've ever heard of Luke D, he lives and breathes on those forums. He'll be, if you have a question, he will answer before anybody else can in the world. So enjoy that. I'm gonna skip out of that. Where's my mouse? Sweet. I think the last presentation I did, it took me 15 minutes to figure this out. So we're on a good track here. All right, so this is VS Code. So the nice thing about VS Code is you can open a file or you can open it in a folder view. So over here you'll see I have it in folder view, so we can see all of the things I have going on inside of this folder. Well, this folder structure, directory structure. So I have PowerCLI 201, a couple files. That's because it's open. And then the PowerCLI 301 files later on. It gives me, can you guys see it okay? Everyone probably wants like a white screen, but I'm not doing that because I don't like it. So we have our, where we can edit the scripts and everything up here, and then we have an integrated terminal down here. So it's kind of similar to the ISE, except you can pull in like newer versions of PowerShell. You can run multiple consoles down here. It's pretty useful. For demo purposes, I'm going to use the integrated terminal, but I can tell you I absolutely hate it, and I never use it at work. I would rather just open up a separate console window, and I have a clean environment. I don't know what the heck this thing is. It's weird. People love it, though. And then as far as other plugins and stuff go, I have a bunch of different extensions. Most notably, we have the PowerShell. And then I think there's like a bracket one. Yeah, not a whole lot. VS Code icons, it makes everything look pretty, but all right. So VS Code. So a couple different, I don't want to be on this one. I want to be here. So we're going to run through all these things. Still doing pretty good on time. Holy crap. I have a really bad glare. All right. All right, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to spin up the environment. So here we're going to run a Docker command to spin this environment up. So this is from William Lamb. So I don't know who actually wrote it, but I use William Lamb's because he kind of pumped some extra configurations into it to make my life a little bit easier. And all I have to do is hit function F8. It's going to run all this stuff. So it's going to start up a container. Then we are going to run some PowerShell to get the IP addresses that are listed out from my machine. The container IP address will be there. I then use that container IP address and basically a blank username and password to log into the vCenter. So now I'm connected to the vCenter. I can run whatever commands I want to run. And can you see the terminal? Yeah, it looks pretty good. All right, so it's going to look and feel just like a normal vCenter. We can do get VM. We can see that we have VMs set here. I don't know who set these to 0.031 gigabytes of memory. I think that's kind of weird, but maybe when I run into William, I'll ask him. All right, let's see what we got. So obviously we can get a single VM, and it just returns the basic information. We talked about doing that get member. So you can see this returns a lot more information. What do we have going on here? There we go. All right, so get member, again, it gives you a whole bunch of information. What's weird is that from a method, so from a property perspective, it gives me tons of useful stuff. But from a method perspective, it doesn't, right? So from a property, we have memory, gigabytes, and all these other notes, name, CPU, all that stuff. But there's no like good methods here for me to really do anything with. But let's see. Too many screens. All right. This one. Now we get the full list against the actual virtual machine object. And if I can find the scroll bar, you can see there, nope. There are a ton more methods. I didn't even know that some of these, I was actually looking at this the other day, and there's like so many more methods that I didn't even know existed. Go ahead.
Virtual machine implementation. What makes you think, okay, I don't want to do this, how do I find this? What makes you think I would underscore not being X?
That's why you're here, is to learn, right? So the question was, how do I know this stuff? One, lots of experimentation, lots of listening to other people talk. Experience, that's going to be your biggest thing, right? Coming to these sessions, you're going to have access to this, so you'll be able to take this home with you. But if we kind of like digest, so are you asking me specifically what these commands mean, or just how I?
I don't know how I would know what command on to the next step.
All right. Right. So the question was, how, when I ran the first command, did I know I didn't get all the information I needed? So. All right. So as a consumer, right, as a user, when you go into the UI and you right click on a virtual machine, you get that full list of things, right? This is like the command line reference to that, right? It's all the same stuff. So you can expect that if you're getting information about a virtual machine through the command line, it should have all the information that you would see in the UI, right? So when I ran that first command, I didn't see any useful methods, no shutdown, no power on, no restart, no set to make a change. I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, something's wrong here, right? So what I'd probably do is be the first thing, like, how do I shut down a VM, right? Google or ChatGPT or whatever I'm going to, whatever people are using these days. I know from experience, like, my next thing is going to pipe it to get view. Get view is the PowerCLI hero. It has all the things about any of the objects. You can do it on a cluster. You can do it on a data center. Anything you can dream of, you'll get more information out of get view than you will ever get out of get VM or get cluster or any other get object. Are you? I didn't even talk that long. Frankie, are you doing this? All right. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So my takeaway, or your takeaway, should be get view. All right. So we can also search for, so the wildcard search I did was starting with S, any method starting with S, if you know PowerShell at all. This one's going to be anything with guest in the name. So we have, from a virtual machine perspective, we can power them on, we can power them off, and then you have guest operations. So I do a lot with guest operations. I do a lot of test automation and things in my normal day-to-day. So I'm very intimate with VMware tools, guest operations, and everything about copying files to executing processes, getting process lists, and all that stuff. So guest stuff. So it's just another way to show you what's available from the guest perspective. All right. So now we're just going to go ahead and run it. So this is kind of a extension of what you saw in the slides. So we know that it's going to spit out the MoRef. So we can go through and get the property of the MoRef, or I can just pipe it to get view and then run the actual command, right? So we talked about just wanting to do get VM, select the name, or get VM, whatever it was, pipe it to shut down guest OS, right? That's what we wanted. But this is what you can actually do. So similar thing, same outcome. And now if we get the list of VMs, we can see that the first virtual machine is now powered off. Simple enough. Go ahead.
Is there a get help for the methods if you don't understand what a method may do?
The question is there a get help for the method if you don't know what the method is going to do? Not with PowerShell. Not through PowerCLI. There's not going to be any information about that because it's not a function, right? So PowerShell is going to give you information about a function or a commandlet that somebody has written. This is going into the SOAP API and expecting an object, and you're not going to get help on an object. All right, so that was the fun stuff with that. What do we have next? All right. So we talked about, we kind of talked about this earlier. I'm going to skip over that. We showed the more information. Did I scroll up? Did I scroll up? I'm like, okay. All right. So now scripts, right? So this is all, we've done everything in a command line, right? But we know that a script now is just a text file with PowerShell commands. So we can just write a script to do the same thing. So I actually have a handy dandy script here that does the same thing. So I gave it a parameter, and I can pass in the parameter of a VM name. That is a name that I gave it. We can write that. We're going to write out a message that says we're attempting to shut down this VM. We're going to shut that VM down. We're going to wait for 3 seconds, and then we'll show you the result of all this. And then this is how you run a script. So I have a PowerShell console open down the bottom. And sure enough, I just say, hey, PowerShell, run this script. So I have, this is called dot sourcing. I'm just doing a dot. The dot says execute this thing. This thing is this script. And then I pass in the parameter name of that virtual machine. So the parameter takes in that virtual machine name and then runs the shutdown command. Simple as that. What do you think will happen if the VM's already powered off? Yeah, we get red stuff. So that's no fun. So error exception, calling shutdown guest. It's not really a useful message. It just says there was an error. It doesn't tell me that it was already turned off, right? So that's no fun. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Let's see. What happens if we don't pass in a name? So same script. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't know, get VM doesn't know what to do. So the script didn't care, right? I didn't tell the script that you needed the VM name. I just said if one's passed in, go ahead and shut the VM down. But get VM does care. So get VM was trying to run a command, and it didn't know what to do it against. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, can you run a what if? Does anyone know how to make the font bigger? Control plus? Let's. I need more screens. I'm used to like 4 screens at work. This is crazy. All right, where were we? Did all that. We did all that. All right, we can minimize this. There we go. All right. Oh, we haven't got the bonus time yet. Hang on. All right, so we ran the script. What happens? Can we use? All right, so yes.
Help.broadcom.com has loads of examples for all of this. How you can type it together. So I'm going to go back to this questionnaire.
Yeah, there's tons of reference material. When I ran git help, if you do -full, it'll give you examples of how to run the command, what parameters to use. Super helpful. Go ahead. Can you create an alarm through PowerCLI? So I have personally never created an alarm through PowerCLI. I am told that you can do it, but I'm not going to confirm yes or no. The really cool thing is, so after the welcome reception tonight, we have the hackathon. So hackathon runs from 7 to 11. I'm kind of stealing my thunder from the end of the presentation, but we'll have Alan Renouf there. I mean, you can ask questions. There's going to be people in that room that are going to have a lot of answers. So it'd be a pretty cool experience for anybody. I'll jump back to that. All right. So the error that we got was not like especially useful, right? It just says it can't validate a name on the parameter name. The argument's empty. So I guess it is kind of useful, but I think we can do a better job. Here's a run of the same script. Again, this is the same script that we've been running every time. Oh, I skipped over one. You can use a parameter name. So you can see I use a parameter name here. So this has to match the name that's in the script. Otherwise, you're going to get a different error. If the VM doesn't exist, it'll tell us that it doesn't exist. Man, this thing doesn't show. Frankie. That was weird. All right. So if the VM doesn't exist, git VM will spit out another error saying it doesn't exist. This isn't the best error handling, so, you know. All right, can we use parameter? Dang it, it scrolled. This thing is annoying. VM does not exist. Oh boy. All right, where were we at? Can you use a parameter? Bonus, doesn't exist. Ah, okay, what about if the VM is already powered off? Oh, see, I've moved on. I have a new script. Hang on. I cheated. All right. So all the previous stuff was done with just a basic script that you saw. So this script, it's like 10 lines. I mean, I wouldn't really call it a script even. I would just call it like some commands that I threw in a file, right? When we start talking about scripts, I have this one that's called script on steroids. So this one is going to be roughly, I think, 100 lines, right? So here, this is the comment-based help that we talked about. So I have a description about what the script is going to do. I have a parameter. I give it a name, the name of the virtual machine. I have an example of how to run this script, and then a note that I love PowerCLI. So here you can see the parameter block. Just for clarification, if you have a parameter in there and you say mandatory, if you don't pass in the parameter, it'll kick back and not run the script. What you're going to see is that I then check to see if the parameter exists again, which is kind of redundant. So don't beat me up for it. All right, so this is how I would approach troubleshooting or trying to write a script in my environment. This is a very basic example, and I know you're probably looking at me like, holy shit, why did you write all this code just to turn off a virtual machine? I know it's a lot, but it's useful, right? And you can reuse the thought process that I have here for anything that you have going on. So first, we capture the parameter. I'm saying it's mandatory. You could also set the type of this parameter to a virtual machine object if you really wanted to. And then you could accept in the virtual machine object. So totally up to you. Parameters are fun. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the VM exists. So I do this VM, and I say equals get VM, the name, this VM. If it doesn't exist, we're going to capture that error so that you don't get that red output. And then I'm throwing an exception of my own, just in a text format, so that the script ends. So the script will end at this point. And it will not try to do any of the follow-on steps. All right. So useful information. So right now we're just capturing a string. I said, hey, go get this VM. And if it returns something, that's fantastic. But what if it returns more than one thing? How many of you have virtual machine names that might encapsulate the same string for multiple things, right? Like prod01, prod02, prod03, right? So all of a sudden you're like, hey, go shut down the machine that says prod. Shit, you just shut down your entire environment, right? So here I'm specific. I want to make sure that this machine count only equals 1. And then if it does, I'm going to check to see whether or not the machine's powered on. So I have a select statement here where I'm checking the property of the VM and saying, hey, is the power state on? Yep, VM's on. We're going to attempt to shut it down. I run the shutdown command. If it's not powered on, I just spit out a message saying it's not powered on. We're good. I'm going to move on. My script is so good I don't even have to do anything. At any point, if we in that top block, if we capture an error, we're going to spit out what the message was and throw that back out. The script stops at that point. If we had more than one VM or it does not equal 0, we say that there was no VMs returned. And if we turn more, I spit out a message that we have more than one VM. Anything else in here? And then I just spit out all the status of the rest of the VMs. All right. Go back to my other file. All right, so now we're on steroids. All right, so virtual machine does not exist. Fantastic, we win. All right, next one. So we can see we have 3 out of 4 VMs powered off at this point. We're doing great. All right, so script runs. We get a message back, hey, the VM's not powered on. and just pumps out the status of all the VMs. There's nothing to do here. We moved on. All right. Let's see if I can move this down just a little bit. If the VM is powered on, so we see that the VM's powered on, we're going to attempt to power it off. We wait 3 seconds, and then we now have all 4 VMs powered off. Super simple. It only took 100 lines of code. All right. So just to prove that comment-based help is good, you can do it in functions. You can also do it in scripts. This is the help of my script that I wrote. So in PowerShell form, you can see that my script has the name of the script. I didn't put a synopsis in there. There's a description. The script is created for VMworld Las Vegas 2020 or VMware Explore. Nobody caught me that time. It's so bad, so bad. And then I have an example, and this is how you would run it. Super simple. Go ahead.
The way you do comment-based help where you declare the parameter, PowerShell likes it better when you actually put the comment above each parameter in the param block. It saves you having to write out that parameter.
Yeah. Let's catch up afterwards. This is the way I do it in all my functions as well. So it's interesting. I don't do a lot of script. I don't do a lot of comment-based help in scripts. I usually am doing functions and modules. So you might be onto something there. All right. So we still have time. That's good. All right. Anybody heard of Script Analyzer? Yes. All right. Script Analyzer. This is put out by the PowerShell team. It is a module that will help inspect your code for errors. It's really cool. Runs really fast. You can do it on any script file, any function that you write, and it'll tell you basically it's best practices. So yeah, so we're going to see if it likes my comment-based help. All right. So the first time I'm going to run this, we're going to invoke Script Analyzer against just my notes file, the file that I was using to kind of drive all of this stuff. So it takes a second. I can't find that. All right, where am I? Helps if you're in the right directory. All right, so it quickly tells me things that are not best practice. You can choose as whether it's you, your organization, your team, whether you want to accept these things or not. So a couple different things, using commandlet aliases. It doesn't like aliases. I don't like aliases. I was hoping one of my friends would show up so I can show what alias I'm going to use. Don't use global variables. I use them all the time. It's just and then a big trailing white space. So on lines 45 and 54 here, it says that I have trailing white space. So that's actually kind of news to me. I didn't realize that I had trailing white space. So we can go back up here to 45. Was it 45? 45. So it's complaining about a space on a comment. Can't make it up. And then what was the other one? 54, probably the same thing. Probably because I copied the comment. 50. All right. So now I go back down. All right, so now we're just down to global variables and using commandlet aliases. Fun stuff. All right, so let's go to my first script and see if there's anything there. Holy crap. All right, so write host. It doesn't actually like write host. Everyone's going to tell you not to write host. If you're writing something and troubleshooting something, use write host. It's fine. The alternatives are write output. It really doesn't matter. Totally up to you. Let's go to my script on steroids and run that one, and no output. Yes, passed everything. So I replaced write host with write output. I removed all the white space, so now I have a nice clean script that I wouldn't feel bad sharing on Gist on GitHub. So pretty cool stuff. And then aliases, you can use them. I don't use them. I don't recommend using them, but for our folks across the pond, if you needed to change data center to data center, you can create an alias for that, and it works perfectly fine. So there's our data center 0. Yes.
PowerShell script analyzer.
Yes, absolutely.
That shows you comments and suggestions, and like if that stuff doesn't bother the hell out of you, it does something.
Yes, 100%. You get one too. Uh-oh. I wouldn't recommend reaching for that one. So the comment was that with VS Code, there's an integration with PS Script Analyzer. You don't even, it actually comes with the PowerShell plugin. So if you have PS Script Analyzer installed and you're using VS Code, you'll get, as you're typing your code, you'll get little red squigglies, green squigglies. Go ahead. Yes, there's a JSON file that you can tell it to ignore. So if you want it to ignore write host, you can have it ignore write host. Additionally, there is a command you can use in your script that will also ignore those things in your functions, so that if you're doing like full-on testing, you can just say, always accept global variables. It doesn't really matter to me. All right, so I'm gonna turn off sleep on my laptop later, so that the next couple days goes a little smoother. All right, so I think that's all I have for that stuff. Let's go back to here. See what this does. Cool. All right, so thanks to my buddy Justin Brandt. So I was flying out here, and our flight attendant was rapping. So I was really like trying to like figure out like, could I rap up here and like get everybody really jazzed to go into the welcome reception? So, and then I was like, that's not me. But it was really cool. So Justin did the thing with ChatGPT, because ChatGPT can help you write your PowerShell code. And this is, he literally just said, give me a rap for PowerCLI. And I was like, it's going to come up with something so stupid. It's hilarious. Read it. It is absolutely, I highlighted some of the words that like stood out to me, that I'm like, oh yeah, I've definitely told people like something like this. So it was pretty fun. Give everybody a second. Right, it's pretty crazy. It was good. It was good. It was like first time too, and I was like, oh wow, that's pretty funny. All right, take your survey. You know, go look at my GitHub repo for all the stuff for 201, 301, and then tonight we have the VMware Code Hackathon, 7 to 11 p.m. Hall G. It's on your way out. When you leave the expo from the welcome reception, you have to pass the hackathon. So just walk in, hang out, join a team. We have 3 awesome judges. Frankie's going to be the MC, right? We have Eric Nielsen is running PowerShell live. It's pretty much what he's doing basically this session in the hackathon, so that you can learn how to use ChatGPT to help you write PowerShell. So no registration needed. Just show up. There will be food, beverages. All the things you need to have a good time. I think I have 10 minutes left. I think we'll probably answer some questions. Let's go.
Speaking of ChatGPT, is there by any chance like a ChatGPT widget in VS Code program that they've come up with?
So the question is there a ChatGPT plugin into VS Code? I have no idea. My assumption is that there's probably an AI plugin, and that you would be able to do it. So I've seen it with other, I was watching actually the Spring guys this morning, and they had a quick Java application that you can literally, it's just a query. So I would imagine the answer is yes. Copilot, he's saying Copilot. So Copilot, I mean, Copilot's not ChatGPT though, right? That's just AI enhancing your coding capability. Yeah. There was another.
Does PowerCLI handle injection for you?
Here you go. And so the question is, does PowerCLI handle injection? What do you mean by injection?
If they're trying to code with their code, whether it's SQL or they're passing PowerCLI code.
So if So my answer to that is it should be handled by the parameters. So if you're passing in a parameter that doesn't match the type, then PowerCLI will kick it back. But from a security aspect, I'm not going to answer for VMware and whether or not there's a possible issue with that, because the issue is that when you're executing against the SOAP API, right? The API would reject anything that it doesn't accept, right? So you have a layer of security with PowerCLI that's going to reject anything that's not a proper parameter type. But then beyond that, the API should be handling the rejection of that command, right? Depending upon what it is. So I don't think that's a PowerCLI issue. I would say that's a SOAP API issue. So that should be handled at the more of the vCenter security layer. Cool. Any other questions? Is PowerCLI still being developed? Yes, there was a release probably less than a month ago, 13, maybe 3. I don't know the exact version. I'm not always running the latest versions in my infrastructure, but yeah, there's I think Common is actually. Frankie, do you know if Common is here? Common? The PowerCLI developer. He's the team lead. I don't know if he's here or not, but yeah, it's still actively being developed. Yes. Okay, I'm not sure if he's here or not, but it is still actively being developed. Yeah, and they're continuing to add more. They're trying to convert a lot of the stuff from the SOAP over to the REST. One day the SOAP will go away. I have no idea when. Cool. Anything else? Cool. Well, thanks for hanging out. Last session of the day, and head to the welcome reception. Yes. Yeah. So this was a combined. They basically just expanded the initial session.